Good afternoon. All the vestments and clothings and things are all finished, finally. It took me a little bit longer than I thought, just because I got sick a little bit a couple of times in between and had not really an emergency project, but somebody says, oh, so-and-so had a baby. Oh, let's make him a blanket. Okay, that took a little bit. Nope, I don't need this. But here's the layout. Two cassocks. That's the front. A little snap closure in the back. The sleeves are quite long, so they will probably need to be rolled up, which is not really a big deal. It just kind of depends on how long the doll's arms are and how things fit. But the cassock is the first piece of clothing, obviously, that the priest would have on. It would just be a cassock that they normally wear, right? A lot of them wear anyway. Then the amice, which this goes around the back and gets tied. These would go down over the front of the body and they get tied at the waist and the back. And that goes on around the back of the neck and everything before the alb. I think it's before the alb. I'll have to double check that one, but I do believe it goes on first. It either goes on before the alb is on, put on, or just after. I'm pretty sure it's before though. So that's the amice. And my cross is a little bit big, but you know, whatever. Okay, two different albs that would go on over the cassock. A little bit of lace at the bottom. Not my grandmother's lace, which I didn't have any of, unfortunately, but there you go. Two cinctures, which would be tied at the waist after the alb is on. They look quite long. They seem quite long. The other one's even longer than this one. But once it would be doubled up and then put on. So once you double it up, you know, you're cutting the length in half anyway. Okay, then the stoles. Again, reversible like the Chasubles. And, well, if it will adjust, doesn't want to. Well, we'll see if we can get this to focus better. I've got a new camera, and we just have to see what I can do with it. Well, it started to focus. There's a cross right at the back of the neck. I remember way back when I was still an Episcopalian, I was helping a friend of mine do some altar linen work, fair linen, some purificators, things like that. And she talked about making stoles for priests, especially those who are in the military. And I guess it wouldn't necessarily be just Episcopal priests. They use basically the same colors that the Roman Catholic priests do, but she was sewing reversible reversible stoles for them. That was for economy, and sorry, I'm trying to think of the right word. Economy, and to be able to store them, to be able to not have so much to take with you. Economy of money for using the materials and economy of space, I guess you could say. But she told me that they always sewed a cross at the center back because the priest would kiss the cross before he put the stole on. And I'm pretty sure I've seen that. But At any rate, so did I. The lady that I started getting some of the ideas for these vestments from had the crosses down at the bottom of the stole. And I've seen that too, and I've seen different devices on there. I don't know, I think this, maybe there, I could have put a cross somewhere else or whatever, but the stoles go under the chasuble anyway. And I know this isn't going to be seen, the little cross isn't going to be seen, that, but it's kind of like I was talking about with the maniple, and I'll talk about that in a moment too. It's entering into the spirit of the thing, even though the pieces may not look exactly like you would see in real vestments. Like you probably see like a fringe at the bottom of the stole, probably. But again, if these are going to be doll clothes and they're going to be played with, things like that could get caught on something or pulled out just seem to be sort of an extraneous item that didn't really need to be there, as long as I'm getting the message across of this is generally what a stole looks like. You can tell it's a stole, even though it's not exactly as a real stole might be. It's utilitarian more than aesthetic, I guess you could say. Although I do think they're quite nice. You've got your green and purple and your red and white. And of course that would go over the alb and under the chasuble. Now to talk about the maniple for a minute. It doesn't really look like a maniple. Maniples are narrower and come out and go down, and there's a fringe on the bottom. This goes around the arm. I don't want to say it's the left arm. No, probably the right arm, because I was probably looking at the picture front on, so it's probably... I'll find out. I'll try to leave a link to different information, but this goes around the arm of the priest. And the reason, again, I did it this way was to be more utilitarian. Little snap closure, put it around the arm and everything. The point of the maniple is that it's kind of harkens back, I guess, to some tradition in the priesthood where a priest would become very emotional while saying Mass and would keep a cloth on his arm to dab away the tears from the emotion of doing so great a thing and being so enraptured in the Mass and what he has to do during the Mass. And so the maniple, as a part of the vestment, grew out of that. And of course this doesn't look at all like a maniple, but again, getting into the spirit of the thing, if you'll excuse the phrase when talking about religious vestments, is that it's a piece of cloth that's going to go on the little doll priest's arm to signify that. And you can kind of see what it's trying to represent, even though it doesn't look exactly like a maniple. And maybe for teaching purposes for a kid, it might spark something in their mind. I don't know. But it's something. And it represents something, even though it may not look exactly like the real thing. Lastly, but not leastly, are the chasubles. Again, red and white, green and purple. No rose set, unfortunately. I don't know. Maybe that will be later. It seemed to make more sense to make it in a set of two. Because if I have a rose one, it wouldn't be. I mean, what am I going to reverse that into? Unless I do blue, some kind of a Marian set, which I guess is not technically allowed at this point. Although I have seen sets of blue vestments online in different places. And some priests do use them. I don't know. I don't know. I have no opinion on that one way or the other because I don't know enough about it to have an opinion. But that's all of it. It's going to get packed up very soon and sent to its final destination. And I will try to leave some links. The patterns for the cassocks and the albs and the Amish came from two different places. And the place that had the alb pattern had a chasuble pattern, but it was a more modern chasuble pattern, and I wanted to do something that looked more traditional. And again, like with the stoles, like especially with the maniple, the chasubles are not really exactly like a fiddleback chasuble. The front is quite different, although from the back it kind of looks like that, although I probably should have rounded the bottom a little bit more, but it was just very much easier just to make rectangles. This was something I figured out on my own. There is no place that I could find that I could source a pattern for a chasuble for a Dahl, at least not like this. Somewhere in everything I had purchased a pattern for making a chasuble, a full-size chasuble, from a nun on Etsy, of all places, and I've got to try to find that and look at that and see if that's actually a fiddleback chasuble or if it's a more modern one. I don't know. I haven't looked for that in a long time. I know I've got the download somewhere. It was a downloadable pattern, and it's somewhere, but where? I don't know. I have one more cassock and alb kind of stashed away. The cassock, the other cassock I have, I think I'm going to use that to make the nun habit that I'm still kind of thinking on. That's going to have to be a separate project, and that will just be a cassock and then some kind of a headpiece and then some kind of a cincture, or maybe I'll make a little cord rosary to go about the waist. Do some nuns have a rosary around their waist? I'm pretty sure I've seen some monks that do. At any rate, that's the project, and I'm really pleased how it came out, and I do look forward to making more of these at some point. Maybe make chasubles that are not reversible. It would sure simplify the neckline a lot and make that a little simpler. But it's also a lot more to do if you had to do, 5 chasubles and 5 stoles. But it's doable. Or again, I think I've talked about this before also, that I might do one of the Irish fisherman Dahl patterns that I have, and instead of doing an Irish fisherman with the sweater, with the Aran sweater, I will try to do them up like St. Patrick or something. That might be something good to do. February, St. Patrick's Day will be here before we know it. Well, not February, but you know what I mean. And maybe St. Patrick would be a good choice to do a Dahl like that. Little mitre, little staff, green vestments. I don't know. All right, well, that is it. I'm going to get this packed up and get ready to go. Thanks a bunch. Bye.